Hello, it is I, Dr. Brian Lorgon 111, and you know the drill. Spoiler warning. I encourage you to play this game before watching this video. You've been warned. Void Stranger is a game that draws inspiration from a number of previous works. In prior lore videos, I've discussed how understanding Dante's Inferno can inform our interpretation of Void Stranger. As of my playthrough thus far, there are still many outstanding mysteries, and today we'll try to address a few of them that I've listed here. Rather than Dante's Inferno, today we'll be looking at a different source material and try to find some answers regarding what are the seals that break when the Void Lords are killed? Why were both Tail and Void Lord Sif unable to see Mon? Why does Mon wear a strange tag on their head? And it was my pursuit of trying to find answers to those first three questions that caused me to stumble upon today's text, which will also help us discover answers to what is the meaning of the opening cutscene of the game, as well as what comes before it. And finally, I think we'll be able to deduce some hints for how are we eventually going to reach the game's good end credits. I've seen a number of credit sequences already in this game, but obviously not the good ones for the end. And so it turns out the topic of the day is going to be the Bible, specifically the Book of Revelation. And just up front as a quick note, I am not a Bible scholar. All of my info is coming from reading either Wikipedia or BibleRef.com. I've got links in the video description. The Book of Revelation was written in Greek, and the title comes from the first word of the text, apocalypsis, which is a Greek word meaning unveiling or revelation, and from which the English word apocalypse is derived. So, what can Revelation tell us about Void Stranger? It turns out possibly a lot. So let me start by reading a bit from the start of the Book of Revelation, chapter 9. I'm going to be eliding some bits, but this is mostly verbatim from the English Standard Version. And the fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth. And he was given the key to the shaft of a bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke, and the air was darkened. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any green plant or tree, but only those people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. So, Revelation is a book of prophecy, and that prophecy divides people into two classes. Those sinners, who the locusts have come to harm, and those believers who would be passed over or unharmed by the locusts. The believers have the mark of God on their head, whereas the sinners, or non-believers who reject God, have the so-called mark of the beast. We'll discuss those marks more later. But first, one more bit from Revelation chapter 9. They have as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. His name is Abaddon. So basically, the opening scene of Void Stranger depicts Gray, who is the embodiment of Ad, short for Abaddon, delivering locusts as punishment to destroy the sinners. The opening cutscene is clearly an allusion to the Book of Revelation. So now, let's consider Mon. Mon appears to the player as a merchant selling information about secret exits in the Void in exchange for locust idols. And at this point in my own playthrough, I was already starting to use my own save states, loading and reloading my game at different points in order to achieve various goals. It turns out that if you talk to Merchant Mon in all 5 of his locations in a single run to purchase all the secrets, they have different bits of flavor text as the final line of dialogue each time, and I didn't see them all in my playthrough, but the 5 flavor text lines of Mon dialogue are shown on the screen. The first time after talking, Mon says, Now, I never said finding these shortcuts would be easy. It wouldn't be any fun like that anyway." The second time, Mon says, "Do you remember how long you've been here?" Don't remind me. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. The third time, Mon says, "Don't go wasting your precious locust idols on those smirking statues. You hear me? Such a useless waste of space, just like their model." Of course referring to the Void Lord B. And then I'm going to skip to Mon's fifth bit of text. What am I going to do with these locusts? Maybe you'll find out if you stick around long enough. Well, that's a bit foreboding, isn't it? But finally, here's the key one, the fourth one. Why am I wearing this tag? Let's just say it keeps both of us safe. So this is what I wanted to know. Why is Mon wearing this tag? Well, we already know how it keeps the player safe. Looking Mon directly in the eye would turn someone into pure gold, according to the rock eggs that we talked to, and we actually got to see it in action with both Mon's idol statues and Mon's boss form during Sif's run. But Mon implies the tag is going to keep Mon safe as well. We have seen that whereas the other traders have intact seals in their basements, Mon's basement used to have a seal, but it went missing. The implication, as I see it, is that Mon has stolen the seal and is wearing it on their head. And furthermore, it is the seal of God. It renders Mon invisible to the agents of destruction who exist to punish the sinners, that is, the Void Lords, as the seal of God protects its bearer. This is why neither Tail nor Sif were able to see Mon directly. Tail only recognized Mon by touch, and Sif just sees footsteps and breaking glass, until Sif's final encounter, where Sif slashes the air and cuts through Mon's seal, rendering them finally visible. And as a quick aside, recall that when the nun, back in the first Limbo section of Dante's Hell, speaks the name of God, it gets censored as star star star. Here in the hellish void, even the name of God is rendered unseeable. So to sum up the relevant bits of Revelation chapter 9, Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, commands an army of locusts to punish those souls who are marked as sinners, but pass over those who are marked by God. And while chapter 9 of the book of Revelation is the meatiest bit when it comes to Void Stranger tidbits, I will call out a few passages from 3 other chapters of Revelation as well. Chapter 5 begins by describing a scroll in the right hand of God. This scroll is sealed 7 times over and seems to symbolize the judgment of God on sin and wickedness. And it is prophesied that Jesus will take the scroll and break open the seals before his second coming. And this seems roughly analogous to the player breaking the seals in order to advance the story in Void Stranger. Here's a bit more tenuous or speculative observation. I want to compare some text from Revelation chapter 1, verse 19, which reads, "Write therefore the things that you have seen, those that are, and those that are going to take place after this." And that verse is basically Jesus commanding John of Patmos to author the book of Revelation. So compare that verse to the note that Void Lord B leaves in the chest under Brain 23 that contains Void Memory. B writes, "My memory of you. With this, you should be able to hear the voice of the fallen, all who were and those who are yet to be." And one could argue that Void Memory is the means to fulfill a prophecy, a way for the player to discover how to reach the good ending and the final judgment of the game. I don't like having to pull forward material from stuff that I haven't already witnessed in my own playthrough yet, but now is definitely the right time to bring up that at some point in the future, much further along in the game, the player will be able to witness this. And it took me only a little sleuthing to reveal that that is clearly pixel art based on this, which is something that someone might see if they were standing in the Sistine Chapel, because it's the central portion of Michelangelo's Last Judgment, a fresco covering the wall behind the altar of this famous building in the Vatican. This work of the Italian Renaissance painter is a depiction of the second coming of Christ and the final and eternal judgment by God of all humanity. And I'm choosing to mention it here now, because while the pixel art in Void Stranger depicts the central part here, just below it, here, we see this scene, which contains images of angels holding a book listing the saved versus the damned, as well as a sinner being dragged down by demons to hell on the far right, and notably 7 angels blowing 7 trumpets. And you might recall that the very first words I quoted directly from Revelation in this video were, "And the 5th angel blew his trumpet." Chapter 9 of Revelation begins in the midst of the 7 trumpet judgments that come after the breaking of the 7 seals of Revelation's prophecy. And so the point I want to make here is that while you could argue that some of the interpretations or connections that I am making between Void Stranger and the Book of Revelation are somewhat tenuous, and I mean, heck, if you really wanted to, someone could probably make a compelling argument that Void Stranger draws more from the Japanese manga Berserk than from the Bible. But nevertheless, the inclusion of this pixel art in Void Stranger that is clearly Michelangelo's Last Judgment makes it almost indisputable that the Book of Revelation is one of the original source materials the game developers drew from in order to craft parts of the game's story and mechanics. So finally, let's come to Chapter 13 of the Book of Revelation. At the start of the video, I said we'd be addressing these mysteries. We've covered the seals of God, and we've also covered Abaddon, Angel of the Abyss, coming down to Earth. But now let's get to the final 2 question marks. Chapter 13 of the Book of Revelation discusses the Mark of the Beast. This mark is taken willingly by people who choose to reject God and worship an Antichrist. But a very important detail is the language used to describe the Mark of the Beast versus the Mark of God. When earlier passages in Revelation refer to God placing his mark or seal on his people, Revelation uses the Greek root word sphrages, which is like an identifying signature that expresses value and protection. Contrast this with the Mark of the Beast, which uses the Greek word haragma, which is more of an engraved stamp, like the kind a livestock owner might use to mark their animals. That is, a brand. In Void Stranger, before we even see the opening cutscene, the player is presented with this screen. Engrave your brand. The player, willingly, if unwittingly, takes on their own 6x6 engraved Mark of the Beast before entering the hellish void at the start of the game. We have seen how engraving the brands of the 8 Void Lords has enabled us to delve deeper into this hell to uncover the mysteries of Void Stranger. But with this new biblical insight, we get another hint about how we might escape Dante's Inferno and get to the good ending of the game. We will need to cast off the Mark of the Beast, that is, remove the brand, in order to have any hope of reaching Dante's Paradiso. Void Stranger Revelation is just one of a number of videos I've made about the story and lore of Void Stranger. Check out the playlist in the video description for more videos like this one. And if you want even more, I've also got a Let's Play of over 80 videos where you can binge watch to re-experience this crazy game alongside me. Check the video description for a link to that as well. With that, strangers, I am Dr. Brian Lorgon 111, and I hope you're having a great day.